when we think about setting up my new nutrition system, am I taking supplements in this, or are the supplements, like they're named, supplemental? Are they an afterthought?
Yeah, good question. I'm gonna say it's anti-AI, because we're 2.0's old hat now. So I think there's probably a function of, like, is it convenient and useful to you? I'm okay with, so supplements are just that, right? They're supplements to a diet. If you're inherently vitamin D deficient, supplement with vitamin D. Most people who live in the Northern Hemisphere would benefit from that. So, and that's fine, right? And I do think supplements are supplements to a diet. So, if you eat 5 to 7 portions of fruit and veg of different colors, and protein sources from, legumes and pulses, whatever it is, if you're, vegan, or animal sources, fish, if you're, omnivore or pescatarian, you piece different foods together and they all have different useful ingredients, right? It's contextually appropriate. But equally, sometimes I think if it's just not convenient to do that, it's fine to use a supplement to support you where appropriate.
Is there, maybe I phrased that question wrong, is there supplements, actually, and now that I think of it, David did give me 3, so it'll be interesting to see if you have the same answer to this question. Is there supplements that everybody should be taking almost regardless of these individual variances in diet?
Yeah, again, I think the most prevalent one that I come back to is vitamin D.
Yeah, you gave that one.
That's certainly the most common one, I think, that comes up. I mean, outside of that, I really step back quite a bit from it generally. Like, I don't know if I could give you 3 that I would say everyone should take. I mean,
he threw in creatine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you could do that.
And his third one, which I don't take, is fish oils.
Yeah, okay. Again, yeah, you could do that. So the creatine one, probably wholly beneficial if you're exercising regularly. If you do 3 sessions a week at your local gym class, or there's you're a healthy, active individual, do you need creatine from a physical performance perspective? Probably not.
Some good news studies though around cognition and Alzheimer's.
Exactly. Yeah. So there might be a cognitive component to creatine as well. In which case, again, maybe that's something that try it and try and have a little diary on how do you feel during the day.
I think with creatine, from what the studies I've seen on it, there doesn't seem a downside to trying it.
No, I don't think there is. I mean, a few years ago there was that, or there was a bit of a narrative around, well, is it detrimental to your kidneys and processing and that kind of stuff, which I think has largely been kind of disproved. But also for the sort of general person taking it now, it's not how it was when it was done in gyms for gaining mass. Yeah. So you don't do a load phase where it's 20 grams a day.
Yeah,
it's
I'm just 5 grams.
Exactly, yeah. So 5 to 10 grams a day is generally fine for most people, and you can sustain that for long periods of time. So yeah, creatine you could. I guess I've always thought of creatine as having like what's it for? I don't know.
I don't know. I just listen to you guys.
Well, yeah.
So we've set up kind of supplements for the guys, and again, I think a good way to think about them is what it's called, supplemental. A better way to think about setting up this new move to anti-AI is focusing on the core of what we've talked about today: fuel for work required. A book we referenced in the conversation with David was Atomic Habits, and apart from the Atomic Habits book that I loved was the idea of when you have a big goal, actually forget about the big goal and break it down to its smallest constituent part. Can we create a habit change, doing something small? So through that framing, if I'm trying to go from my old worldview to the anti-AI worldview, what's the smallest changes I can make to start creating this momentum?
Yeah, good question. Can I give you my lived example of this?
Please do.
So, what's the sort of daily government suggested recommendation of fruit and veg intake per day?
I don't know. I'd say 5.
Yeah, so 5 to 7 portions of fruit and veg a day, right? Now, I, of all people, have no excuse for not getting that, right? I know every reason. No, I don't know every. I know most of the reasons why every component of those is good for me. Do I get 5 portions of fruit and veg a day every day? No. Do I fuck? So, and it's behavior, right? So I realized that so we have like a nice fruit bowl which we put fruit in our house like each week when we go shopping, and there was apples there, and I was like, oh, they go a bit soft, and I'd mush them up, put them in apple crumble or something, and but I wasn't eating them. And one day my wife was like, oh, I'm cutting up an apple, do you want some? I was like, yeah, oh, thanks very much. And she cut it up, you know, like took it off the core and just cut it into strips, gave it to me, and I was just ate it away whilst I was on the laptop. I realized that the act of crunching through an apple, for some reason for me, I'm like, oh, that's too much hard work, I can't be asked, so I don't do it. So now every day when I go into the kitchen from the office, I cut an apple up, and if I do that, I know for a fact that I'll eat it. And it's like, it's that small a change.
It's just the friction.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know what, and it's completely illogical and irrational.
No, it's quite logical, because if you think about it, you can use friction both ways, though. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I've used friction in the past to defeat habits that aren't very productive or useful. Yep. A good example, I used to be an avid reader. I'd nail through a book each week, and I found myself through the years going, I'm really shit at reading. And it's because every time I was halfway through a page, I pick up my phone and start flicking.
Yeah, okay.
So now I start creating friction. The phone goes into a different room, gets put into a drawer. So now to put the book down, I got to walk into another room, open a drawer. So it's an example of using friction the opposite way. 100%. You've taken friction out, I've added friction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's creating really, like, honestly, like we said about how to create an energy deficit. You only need to make a really small change, but aggregating it over time adds up. And I think that's David would be the best person to give you, whether it's restructure the environment or whether it's motivate or, you know, any of those other components that go into behavior. But like it's creating the smallest change that I think is the best.
It's almost like, you know, if I'm going to go for a ride tomorrow morning, Saturday morning's a good example for a club meetup spin. Friday night, my set of behaviors and habits are, I check the weather forecast for the next day. I lay out my kit for the next day. I lay out my fuel for the ride for the next day. I make sure my SRAM batteries are charged, my hammerhead's charged. Everything's ready to go. So the next morning when I wake up, there's very little friction. It's easier to do it than not do it. And I think that's a good example of how could we take that routine and bring that into the nutrition world. So it's easier to live this new system than not live this new system.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that like we wanted to do with Hexus as well, is like, how much should I eat? Cool, we'll remove a point of friction in trying to understand what that is. But again, it's reducing cognitive load. We talked about it like at the top of the episode, and like if you can just reduce as much cognitive load. I also think there's you mentioned it before, like there's a community thing there. Like I know one of the designers and product managers who works for us. Like she has a really active community group of cyclists in London that she's part of.
Interesting.
And they talk about fueling on bike. They talk about like going in, they go and do, like, they'll go and document, I think they're trying to ride round or go to all the top 100 pastry shops in London.
That's
something like that.
In this group.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's things like that where I think there's actually like a really and it takes, and don't get me wrong, like it's not just straight up easy. Like it takes a little bit of work, but I think there's a community element to that which can help to, everything. Like, why is parkrun so successful? Because if you want to get 1,000 people to run 5K on a Saturday morning, bring them all together, give them a fixed start time, lay out the route for them. It's doing all those little things, but it's bring people together.
And I think actually, if you use that idea of adding and removing friction from good habits and bad habits, on the far end, you can add friction to the bad habits around your diet. Like don't have a Uber Eats account. So if you do want to order a takeaway, you need to pick up the phone and have that infuriating wait and back and forth exchange, rather than, the Amazon type model where it's like click it and it just arrives.
Tap and send.
It's like McDonald's. I had McDonald's on we use Just Eat here. And I had like McDonald's on it. I seen it was just too easy. I was watching it movie. It's like, oh, McFlurry. It magically just shows up at the door. And you're like, did I really need that McFlurry? Now I have the guilt about the McFlurry and the remorse.
And it's the same it's the same when you go shopping. Like if you don't have the foods in the house, it's more difficult to to find and eat foods that are not contextually appropriate for what you're doing.
We've all heard that expression of don't go shopping when you're hungry.
Yeah.
could you extend the same analogy to don't make dietary choices when you're sleep deprived?
That's a good way to think about it. I think there's you're naturally more inclined to go towards high reward sugary foods when you're sleep deprived. And there's good underlying biology for why that is. So yeah, exactly the same.
Like, I'd be interested to know what you were having for breakfast after nights out at Roller Alive. It wasn't oats.
No, it wasn't. I think it was tacos at about midday. But again, fish oils. I think we had fish. Those fish tacos maybe. So
I think we've covered a lot of ground. For anyone who hasn't checked it out, I am going to make a solemn commitment to you now. We're going to get you back on the podcast in insert time period, 3 months, 4 months, whatever.
Very good.
And
I'm in.
I'm going to go all in on Hexes. I'm going to actually use it. I'm going to park my, French crazy dietary preconceptions. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to eat more to get lighter. And I'm going to be your case study for this.
We'll do it.
Sam, really appreciate you flying across from the UK to sit with us here today.
That was grand.
Massively, massively beneficial conversation for anyone who takes the time to dissect it properly and listen over and back again.
Yeah, hope it was helpful. I think that's one of the great things about being able to, it was one of the great things about having podcasts like this, right? You can come and have these conversations, and like, if it helps people, awesome.
Yeah, they're not easy topics. They don't lead themselves well to a 60-second TikTok or a reel.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Or a tweet. There's nuance to it though.
Sure. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love that there's a platform where you can go no time limit.
Yeah.
To discuss really complex topics with brilliant minds.
Trying to explain constrained and additive energy expenditure in 60 seconds is difficult. So yeah, fair.
Sam, thank you very much. Really appreciate you. We'll chat to you.
Cheers.
We have 3 long-form podcasts every week. Some of them are 90 minutes or 2 hours long. And I realize you're busy. Sometimes it's hard to cut through the noise and figure out the signal, figure out what the important parts are of these conversations. So I've taken your feedback, and once a week I'm delivering to your inbox a newsletter called The Saturday Spin. It's a 4-minute read or less, and it's going to break down the very best thing I've learned on the podcast this week. So it's insights from the biggest names in the world tour, physiologists, sports psychologists, and coaches. It's completely free to sign up to the newsletter. All you have to do is go to roadmancycling.com, stick in your email address, and once a week on a Saturday morning, I will deliver the Saturday Spin newsletter direct to your inbox. The link is down below. Go sign up.